Hi, my name is Lily and I am the founder of Merino y Vino, which I started in March of 2020. I started it right as the pandemic was beginning. I had learned about dyeing yarn, and people said, oh yeah, it's really easy, you just start with Kool-Aid and or food dye and vinegar. And so I gave it a shot when things were starting to shut down, and I was like, this is really fun. I don't consider myself artistic in the traditional sense, like I can't sculpt, I'm horrible at drawing and painting, but I love color and I appreciate art. And so this was a really cool way to experiment with colors and be artistic without being able to draw. Granted, my brother-in-law and sister-in-law are artists, and they just tell me, oh, well, if you practiced, you would actually get good. So maybe one day I'll give that a shot. But in terms of the fiber arts, I suppose I would call myself artistic because of yarn dyeing and knitting and crochet, and I also started Tunisian crochet during the pandemic. So a little bit about me and my fiber journey. My grandmother taught me to knit when I was 8 years old. I don't know what gave me the idea. I think I knew she knit, and I was like, well, she's a grandmother and all grandmothers knit, you know. Of course, that's a cliche now, and a lot of people knit from all ages. So I was incorrect when I was a child, but what can you do? So she took me to a yarn store, got me some yarn and a circular needle, and I learned how to cast on and do the knit stitch, and so that was pretty awesome. I knit for about a year, and then I stopped until my freshman year of college. And I was living in a dorm with my roommate, and one day I saw that she had a basket of yarn and knitting needles, and I was like, hey, I know how to knit. And so she retaught me how to cast on. I remembered the knit and purl stitches, surprisingly, and then she retaught me how to cast off, and I never stopped knitting after that. So thank you, Crystal, for reteaching me how to knit. And then when I studied abroad in Spain, my junior year of college, two of my friends, Kristen and Johanna, knew how to knit, and that was when I learned how to knit and purl in the same row, which it seems kind of weird that it took me so long to be able to do something that I now consider super easy. But Johanna is like, yeah, you just need to bring the yarn in front and then you can knit and purl in the same row. And after that, I really took off with just knitting a ton of different things. I learned to crochet multiple times, probably starting in 2008, which was when I came back from my study abroad, because people say that crochet was more of a stress reliever and had more medical benefits. And for some reason, I just always had trouble reading my crochet. Like with knitting, you can count the stitches on the needle. With crochet, you really have to pay attention to like, what's the stitch and where is it? Have you reached the end of the row or not? Now so I learned how to crochet 4 times, and the 4th time it stuck, which was again during the pandemic. I think in August I started crocheting, and my next door neighbor Becca, she tried knitting, didn't like it so much, so then I showed her, I think, the basics of crochet. I don't even remember, and then she totally took off with that. So that's awesome. And I started Tunisian crochet because that was like a lot of fun. I have a knitting machine. My husband's a computer programmer, and he's all about being effective with your time. And so he's like, let's do the knitting machine. And I do make stuff on the knitting machine. I love it. But there's something about hand knitting that I also really enjoy. So that's basically my fiber journey. I am a teacher full-time. I teach high school English. I've also taught middle school Spanish, which was a lot of fun. And I've taught English at the college level as well when I was getting my master's degree. So I'm kind of all over the place, but I guess it's not surprising that a teacher would be stressed and uses knitting and the fiber arts to de-stress. One thing I love about the fiber community, which I'm sure most people would agree with me, ideally everyone, is how warm and welcoming a community it is. I find it very dismaying when I hear how many students are bullied on social media, and I keep telling them, like, well, if you were following all the crafters that I follow on Instagram, you would find that like digital friends are a lot more accepting and kind, and the world would just be a better place if everyone participated in the fiber arts, I think. So So yeah, that's a little bit about me. I'm a mom of 2 kids, actually. My daughter is 2 and 9 months, and I just gave birth to my son 2 weeks ago, so he's just sleeping at my feet right now as I film this. And the second child so far is really easy. I might be biting my tongue later on, but so far so good. For my niche, I let's see, I love all the indie dyers out there, but sometimes you can't just find exactly what you're looking for, and that's why I started yarn dyeing. My goal eventually is to just use fiber that is grown or developed in Arizona, so using like alpacas that are raised in Arizona, or finding wool raised in Arizona that I can use to dye my yarn. And eventually I'd like to open my own yarn cafe in Flagstaff, which is where I now live. And I just think it'd be a lot of fun to have coffee and wine and yarn, and have people come and hang out all day and knit and crochet or do whatever. So that's ultimately my dream for how I want my yarn business to develop and grow. I'm doing my first yarn advent this year, or surprise box, inspired by Pride and Prejudice, which is my favorite book, and the 1995 BBC version's my favorite adaptation. So that's what inspired it. And I love literature, English teacher, so I'm thinking maybe Poldark will be my next, and I'm definitely going to do Lord of the Rings sometime because that's my husband's favorite. So that's a little bit about me. Thank you so much.